take them down and take them down and take them down. As you look, the whole room explodes. Take them down and take them down and take them. As you look, the whole room explodes.
So Shai Peretz and Itai from Outbrain. I lead the ops and IT teams at Outbrain, and Itai is all R&D. A little bit about what Outbrain is doing. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Outbrain. You know what we do. So we push recommendations for content. If you go to publisher websites all over the world, could be Ynet or CNN or wherever, and you go and look at the page and read one of the articles, down below the page usually, or it could be any other location on the site, you'll see recommendations for further reading. And I can show some examples of that. The main focus is obviously on the user and in providing best recommendations for the user. So we try to find what's most interesting for you, and this is what we're trying to push for you. A little bit about how Outbrain is scaling. So we're scaling on several factors. Currently we serve, I think, a little bit more than 15 million pages per month, where our recommendations are sitting on. We use, in terms of storage, we've collected multiple petabytes of data. Some of it is user data, some of it is other data that we collect in order to calculate the recommendations.
Just the logs that we collect every day is more than 3.5 terabytes of data. So that's big data.
That's small.
Small.
We use roughly 3,000 servers, all physical servers, distributed over 3 data centers in 3 different locations, currently only in the US, with plans to expand it into Europe and Asia Pacific later on. Monitoring, just another number that can bring some value, is more than 2 million metrics per minute that we collect from everything, from the application and system together. And similar to what Alon presented earlier, it also goes to Graphite as our data collection system. Our team, Outbrain in all, is about 350 people. Out of that, 90 engineers, dev and ops together. So, some of the operational decisions that we took in order to allow this scale. We design and build our own data centers, and this is almost from day one. It's true that at the very beginning we started with some S3 presence, but we have shifted that into our own data centers. Lately we have acquired a company in New York that ran everything in Amazon, in AWS, and we've shifted all their services into our own data centers as well, which was quite a project, but still I think that it was worth it, and we figured that we had a lot of cost saving and also better performance and flexibility while doing that. We use Active on all our data centers, so all of them receive traffic at the same time, and we have the ability to shift the traffic from one data center to another. We actually had, I shouldn't say good, but a good opportunity to test it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, the data center that we have in New York, Internap. Yeah, you can move to the other side. The data center in New York has had a total shutdown of the power. They had some bad architecture with the UPS system, and when one UPS system went down, it killed the other UPS. So we had a complete shutdown of the data center right at the point, and we had to do something about it, and we shifted all traffic to other data centers in a way that users and customers, publisher almost didn't feel anything. And then we had to recover this data center once we had the power back up. So this architecture proved itself to be very resilient for us, and this was not the only case. almost a year ago during the Sandy storm, a similar situation, and it behaved the same. During events like this, what we do usually, we have a war room at the office in Outbrain in Israel, and over there we have huge collaboration of the developers and the operations teams working together in order to make it happen, make sure that the service comes up as quickly as possible and without any issues.
We will talk a lot about the cultural stuff of DevOps, and as part of the development group, we have a group that is dedicated to the infrastructure, the data, and all the stuff that we have to build for operations. And those people are working very, very closely to the operations. In fact, they are located in the same, we have 2 floors, they are located in the same floor, and when we ask them to move to that floor, they ask to sit mixed, in a mixed way. So developers and operation guys are sitting one next to the other. This was their request.
Yeah, I think from the old perspective, this is almost a must, because we work so closely with the R&D teams. So we need to make sure that the flow of information and data between the teams is flawless. It's like whatever we do, we need to be aware of what they're doing, and they need to be aware of what we're doing in order to make sure that we're in sync all the time. And I think this sitting arrangement proven to be something which allows it and give it a very good support. So in Ops, what we give is all the common ground, the foundation, not only from server perspective, but also all the services on top of it, like HAProxy as load balancing, DNS infrastructure, or whatever needed in order to run the services. We have also about 100, a little bit more services now running on the system. And we invest a lot of time in automation. We believe that without automation of everything that we cannot run a scalable environment like we have at Outbrain. We use the concept that we've borrowed from Google, the SREs, even though not to the full extent, and we do plan on expanding that. We have people from Ops that are working closely with the R&D teams in order to provide them with the support that they need and be the liaison between the R&D team and the Ops team. And our plan for the future is actually to make it even more and have this SRE as a dedicated resource that will work for all the Ops needs within the R&D team.
We are going to explore more stuff, but before we will do that, some values that are very important for us that help us to create a culture that is allowing DevOps to function. So one thing is ownership. We believe that the teams that are building stuff must be owners of the services that they are building. We are talking about one of the values. Another value is good communication and trust. And this is something which is very important. And learning. We are doing it in a lot of ways, learning from bad events and good events. And a lot of stuff that we are doing came out of learning.
So talking about communication, we use everything that we can in order to ease the communication between the teams. We do weekly sync meetings of managers and the SREs together. We use HipChat as a means of communication which is like always on for both engineers and the Ops team. The Ops team is always live and running, and if there's any issue, you just ping in the HipChat room and somebody will take care of it, whoever is on shift, or if it's during the business days, obviously many people are aware and running there. And we use all the communication channels that are open in order to make it happen and have good communication between the team in order to build this trust. We try to create an environment which will be blameless. If there's an issue, we try and solve it together and not trying to see, well, these aren't the guys, they don't know what they're doing, let them solve the problem and get back to us all the time.
We are also practicing continuous deployment. We started almost 3 years ago, fully in the R&D. It means that we are deploying around 70 times a day. So every roughly 10 minutes, we deploy a version of a service to our production environment. And the decision about what is going to be deployed is taken by the developers themselves. And we believe that our teams is the best team that knows when to deploy, and they are aware of all the consequences in the deployment. And as owners, they have to monitor what they are deploying and decide if everything is okay or not. And if not, they have to act immediately to fix that. So the developers, the owners of the services, ops are owners of the infrastructure, our network, and whenever there is a problem, they have to fix that.
Stability goals. So first of all, prevention. Whatever we can prevent, obviously, is better than fix it later. But if we have to fix it later, so we're trying to work on that. The MTTR will be the lowest possible. And in order for that to happen, it requires a lot of monitoring and make sure that we find out about the problem as soon as it happens, and then we can tackle it.
Who knows what is MTTR?
Oh, sorry. Mean time to resolve. If there is an issue, how much time does it take us to identify the problem and obviously finally resolve it? We live under this assumption that technology will eventually fail. And our promise to the business is not that it will not fail, but that we will fix it as soon as we can once it fails.
To maintain a low MTTR, we have a structure that is based on operation on shift. Someone from operation that is 24 hours, 24/7 available. He's looking at the system, he's monitoring, making sure that everything is okay. He's the first line that takes action in case of a problem. In each one of the teams, we have an engineer on call. Engineering on call is someone that is responsible to respond in case that there is a problem. We are using PagerDuty to escalate critical alert to the teams. So anyone which is an engineer on call could get an SMS or an afterwards a phone call in case that there is a critical alert. There are other alerts that we know that we can live with, and they can wait to the morning, so we are not sending notifications to the team in case that the alerts are not critical. When there is an alert that goes to the engineer on call, the responsibility of the engineer on call is to do all the actions needed to fix the problem. He has to go on each chat on phone or she, yeah. With the ops on shift, and together they have to handle the problem. Not all the engineers knows all the technical stuff that is related to the issue, so they can bring other members of the team to help them.
Yeah, I would add only that, first of all, we take advantage of the fact that we have a distributed ops team. So we do like 12-hour shift here in the Israeli team and 12-hour shifts in the New York team. And the idea is to get as soon as we can to the person that can solve the problem as quickly as possible. So most of the cases, it will be if it's not something which is infrastructure related, and then the ops on call can do the work and solve the issue. Then the developer that actually developed the service is the right person to resolve the issues. And it also comes together with feeling the pain and the responsibility. You build it, you run it. And you have the people that can help you resolve the issues when you have them. So this is the idea.
To support the continuous deployment of all this operation, we have the immune system that prevents or that alerts us when something is wrong. It consists of several layers. We have unit tests, and this is part of the development process to write a lot of unit tests. Integration, a lot of unit tests and fast ones. So all the unit test suite runs in less than 10 minutes. We have integration and regression tests. We're using Selenium and a system that we built to do periodic testing. Self-test, every service that we have knows how to self-test itself and notify if something is wrong. We have a huge monitoring system. As Shai said, we collect more than 2 million KPIs every minute, and alerting system which is based on Nagios.
It's a combination of several tools. We collect all the data to Graphite, we use Nagios to monitor this data and threshold, and then send us alerts as needed and escalate them via PagerDuty. It's important to say that this is a self-serve environment, so a developer writes their own test and alerts, and they send it to whomever need to take care of the alerts. Keys to success on the immune system is, as I said, self-serve. Try to eliminate false alarm. Obviously, when you have false alarms, it creates a lot of noise, and this is an ongoing fight to reduce the level of noise and improve the signal-to-noise ratio. Automatic full coverage of everything, so if we have a new service, automatically the system will know that it's there and will monitor it, at least on the basic level, and then later on the monitoring will improve. We do takings that Itai will talk about, which are important.
Yes. Takings are an important part of the culture. Whenever there is an event, a good event or a bad event, we are doing a meeting, and the purpose of the meeting is to see how can we learn from that event. We usually sit around the table, all the people that are related. We say that this is a blameless meeting, so we keep the blame out of the meeting, and we try to get to the root cause of the issue and see what are the action items that we can bring back that are cost-effective, stuff that we can do to prevent the next event, to replicate a good behavior or to find issues earlier. So such take-ins are happening 3-4 times a week based on the event that we have, and it brings action items to the roadmap.
We also do take-ins for good events that we have in order to learn from them and make sure that we can learn from the good things that we do, not only failures in the system. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I think short. So any questions? Welcome.
Two questions. This one here and one back there. Let's start back.
Can you say, elaborate on the continuous deployment system? How do you deploy? Do you deploy everything together? Do you deploy to part of the servers?
Okay, so we have around, the question is how do we do the continuous deployment? We build a system based on a system called Clue. It came from LinkedIn. We have something like 110 standalone services which we can deploy each one independently the other stuff. So we can deploy any service at any time that we want. The way it works, that a developer can, during the commit, can say in the notes of the commit, deploy this service to which machine or which environment. This triggers a build done on TeamCity. All the unit tests, the relevant unit tests are being executed. the TeamCity creates an artifact, jar, var, whatever, and there is a system that sends it to all the data center, and then we take one of the servers, we deploy the artifact on that server, we test it. If this Canarian test works, we deploy the same stuff on a third of the servers, and then another third, and another third. The whole process takes, when we have something like, the biggest service is 100 servers, it takes something like 15 minutes to do this deployment. And this happens something like 70 times every day.
What's another question here?